I competed in the largest regional Pokemon tournament of all time, and in today's video, I'm going to share with you guys our results and how we did in this tournament. What is up, everybody? My name is TalonMasterJ. As you guys know, I am a competitive Pokemon player. I do mostly single battles, but I've been trying my hand in the VGC realm in the last couple of weeks and months. And recently, I just competed in the Orlando Pokemon Regional Tournament. Because, as you guys know, despite being a team based on Atlanta, we live in Florida. So when we got a chance to compete in the first regionals in Florida in, I think, over 3 years, I could be wrong on that, I took a chance, guys. I was hyped as hell to compete in this tournament, and I'm here to talk to you guys about what happened over this weekend, which is probably one of the best weekends of my life. So if you're looking forward to hearing about this kind of information, leave a like on this video below, comment down below what you think of this video and how you think I did, and subscribe if you guys are new. We are on our way to 300 subscribers, ladies and gentlemen, and all the support is massively appreciated. And also, while you're at it, go follow my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/TalonMasterJ. We're right at the cusp of 200 followers on Twitch. I'm going to be doing some VGC work on Twitch probably this week and next week, so be ready for that. And I just want to have some fun with y'all. But let's get into it, guys. So, as I was saying, the first thing about the regional is very simple. It was the largest regional tournament in the history of Pokemon. It actually got to its cap on our division, on the Masters division, twice in an hour. Both registrations locked up in 1 hour. Now, fortunately, myself and the Sky Pillar Championship League players, Badass Frostlass, Sharpedo Rider, Artisan Kane, Mario Jimenez, Ryan Conley, we all got in on that very first registration. And I was following up with my friend Bishmi so that way he could register if they did get more information. They did end up getting more. And Bishmi and Shiny Shuriken and Kaiwi or Kieran, they got to register too. So we got to meet all those guys as well while we were in Orlando. And honestly, guys, it was such a blast to finally meet some of the good people in this community for the first time. I've known these guys are good people, but when you meet them in person, it just feels better, if you know what I mean. So, when I got to meet them, you know, they got to meet me. Now, I'm a big dude. I'll admit it. You guys see it, I'm a big dude. But just being able to, you know, meet your friends for the first time, it's a good feeling. And these guys are some of the coolest people in the community. Straight up. You guys need to go and subscribe to them as well as subscribing here in the future. But I want to talk about my team, what happened against my opponents, and then we're going to talk about the final standings because of the players that I just mentioned that we met. I was one of the highest placers. In fact, of all of us, I think it was Ryan who actually placed the highest, and he was the only one of us to get championship points because he finished 102nd of a possible 780 participants, guys. So I would highly recommend going to sub Ryan because if he gets top 128, he deserves your guys' support. But I'm going to lower myself on the webcam real quick because I want you guys to see my team, and then we're going to talk about what goes on with the tournament and all the rounds I was in. So, first and foremost, let's give you guys what my team looked like. My team was this. We had Brute Bonnet, Roaring Moon, Fluttermane, Goldengo, Farigiraf, and Armarouge. Now, you're probably looking at it straight up, and you're thinking, okay, this is unique. Now, because it was Orlando, it was Series 2. That means the Paradox Pokemon were legal, and I'll just say it straight up, guys. I brought the two most common two of the most common Paradox Pokemon. And at the very least, they were the two most common past Paradox Pokemon. If we're talking overall Paradox Pokemon, apparently, according to VGC Paste and Victory Road and those guys on Twitter, 50% of trainers brought either Iron Hands or Iron Bundle. And ironically enough, for 10 rounds, I did not see the Delibird ripoff, which is astronomical. When I told my friends, they couldn't even believe it. They're like, how the hell did you avoid an iron bundle for 10 rounds? It's very simple. Nobody brought it. Nobody had it. But let me explain why I brought these 6. Brute Bonnet, it's Amoonguss's past form. It had access to Rage Powder. I needed some redirection. I wanted to have a way to put opposing Pokemon to sleep, and then Crunch and Bullet Seed. Some people ran Seed Bomb, others ran Bullet Seed. I ran Bullet Seed because I wanted to be able to knock out a Flutter Mane in one shot without having to worry about a Focus Sash. Because Bullet Seed will knock out a Flutter Mane as long as it's not Fire type, Steel type, or Flying type. But that's why. And also, Terra Poison was because I felt like making it sort of like Amoonguss would have been the play. And ironically enough, a lot of players that ran Amoonguss either ran it Terra Dark or Terra Water. It depended on who you were playing. As for the rest of the team, Roaring Moon, Booster Energy. Now, you guys see it. Also, I should have said this. This is open team sheet, so you don't see your opponent's stats. You don't know what their EV investment is, what their nature is. So you're basically just going on, okay, this is their item, this is their ability, this is their Terra type, these are their moves. I could technically show my hand, but I feel like I'll just put that in the Pokepaste in the description below. But as for Roaring Moon, Terra Fire, Roaring Moon was consistently ran Terra Flying. And I wanted a Fire type just so that way I could put a little bit of extra pressure on any Flutter Manes and or Scream Tails, because, and also Sylveon, but I didn't really see many Sylveons. I think I only saw one in the 10 rounds. But the Fire type at least guarantees that I can live a hit from one of them. And, I mean, I'll still take a lot of damage, but it'll be a lot more resistant. Tailwind was there for my speed control. Protect, I've learned now in VGC, you need to have Protect. You need to have it on everything. Crunch and Dragon Claw for its stab moves. I thought about Throat Chop, but I figured, you know what, never mind. Flutter Mane, this was probably the most common Flutter Mane set, with the exception of Terra Blast. The reason I had Terra Blast on there was very simple. I needed some Water type coverage, and I figured, you know, let me put it on Flutter Mane, give it Water type, and that way it can hit any Fire types or Ground types super effectively. There wasn't many Rock types, truthfully, but having a Water type attack was noteworthy. But Flutter Mane was either running Focus Sash or Choice Specs or Life Orb. So I was in the majority of how the Flutter Mane is ranked. So there's that. Goldango, I mean, guys, you know me. I'm a Steel type expert. Simple as that. I'm a Steel type expert. So I had to bring a Steel type. I brought Goldango. Gave it a Life Orb. I was working with Choice Specs in training, but it just wasn't really working all that much for me, so I decided, okay, I'm going to sacrifice the 50% boost at the cost of locking myself in to be able to use multiple moves, such as Make It Rain, make Shadow Ball, Power Gem. Power Gem was there for any Talonflames or Arcanines or Kilowattrels, you know, stuff that a Rock-type move would be super effective against. And then Protect, again, I'm learning how valuable this move is. You guys see it. 4 of my Pokemon have Protect. And the only 2 that didn't have their own niches. I don't have it on here because it's open team sheet. But for Farigiraf, if you guys remember how I said that I stream on Twitch. A week before this tournament, I was planning to run Indeedee. Because Indeedee has access to Follow Me, Helping Hand, Trick Room, Dazzling Gleam, Psychic, Hyper Voice, and most importantly, Psychic Surge to help out with Armarouge if I'm running Expanding Force. Because Armarouge is the only Pokemon that gets Expanding Force. But while I was doing that, I actually ran into a full odds shiny Girafarig, which I laughed at. You guys can go and see the clip on my Twitch channel. It was hilarious. I laughed my ass off. But I didn't look at the Girafarig's stats until after the stream was over. And what I found out was not only was my Girafarig a relaxed nature, which is plus defense and minus speed, which is really good for a Trick Room Pokemon like Farigiraf, it was a 0 IV in speed. I got a shiny 0 IV Trick Room Setter and Abuser all in one with a perfect nature. I couldn't believe my luck, guys. I literally couldn't believe my luck. So when I got that, I was like, okay, Farigiraf, you're in. Indeedee, you're out. And that's what I did. I had a Terra Fairy because that's what Indeedee was running. But I also worked out with Ryan, with Sharpie, and with Badass Frostless. I worked with them, and also Kane and Mario. I was working with them on what I should run on Farigiraf, and they were like, run it Terra Normal if you're doing attack, or run it Terra Fairy if you're going to do a little bit more defense. And that's what I ended up going defensive on Farigiraf. And it did actually play out well, which I'll explain in the match recaps. And then finally, Armor Rouge, I gave a Covert Cloak because I didn't want to get flinched. I really didn't want to get flinched if I was going to click Trick Room with Armor Rouge. Psychic was its main Psychic stat because if I don't have Expanding Force, there's no reason to have that move on if you don't have Psychic Surge. Heat Wave, I needed a spread move. Energy Ball with Terra Grass. That way it could be its attacking move in Terra type. I could have put Terra Blast, but Matt and Sharpie both said, why are you doing that? Make sure you're using a move that's actually their type instead of just plopping Terra Blast on it. And that's what I ended up doing. So that was the 6 that I brought. And honestly, it did well on the Showdown ladder too. It got me into the 1400, which at the time of the tournament was just under the top 500, but not like, you know, so bad that you're not even ranked. And also, I was 15 wins over from the win-loss difference at the time of the tournament. So plus 15 with this team, I will take it. And I have to also, and like I said, I'm thanking all my friends for the assistance with the team building, because without them, I would not have done this. But now, we're going to get into each of the matchups, because, like I said, there were 10 rounds of Swiss, and I'm going to talk to you guys about their team, and what exactly happened, or at least to my recollection of what happened in each battle. So, first and foremost, let's go to it. Now, this first team was against Chance Hans. And you can see here, I also put in there WLW. That means that I won Game 1, lost Game 2, and won Game 3. And his team was really good. Chance's team was really, really good. He had Amoonguss, Dark-type, Akaberry with Spore, Rage Powder, Clear Smog, and Polypuff. The standard set for Amoonguss with Terra Dark. The Akaberry is kind of what threw me off, and I can't remember if I procced it once. I think I might have. But then he had Sableye. His Sableye was completely defensive. So it had Light Clay with Prankster, Reflect, Light Screen, Disable, and Encore. And when I saw that on the open team sheet, I was like, okay, I gotta either A, get rid of this thing early, or B, hold it around to where it's the last Pokemon and I win automatically. Next up was his Annihilate, Terra Steel type, Protect, Drain Punch, Bulk Up, Rage Fist. A standard set for Annihilate in VGC. Terra Steel was kind of what threw me off, but I did tell him beforehand because I'm a Steel type master. Props for using part Steel type, because I do love that type. Next up was his Meowscarada with Focus Sash, Flower Trick, Protect, Knock Off, and Taunt. The fun thing was that he could not knock out my Goldengo with Knock Off, which was absolutely great. So I got that on him. But Flower Trick was there. It was a niche move. I mean, it never misses, and it's a critical hit every time. So there is that. But Flower Trick, Protect, Knock Off, and Taunt. Taunt was there for, like, I think he said he put it there for, like, my Farigiraf or my Armor Rouge trying to do Trick Room sets, even though, you know, Knock Off would do even more damage. Next up was his Tyranitar, Weakness Policy Tyranitar, first and foremost. And it was just, when I saw that it was Weakness Policy, I knew I had to work around it. I really knew I had to work around it because I didn't want to proc it and basically play into his end game. With Protect, Crunch, Rock Slide, and Iron Head, really good set. And again, the Weakness Policy is what threw me off. And then Baxcalibur, it's a standard Baxcalibur set with Loaded Dice and Icicle Spear, Dragon Claws there. Apparently Stomping Tantrum on this thing is really good. And then a Poison Terra type. And the way that this battle worked was Game 1, I ended up getting a crit burn on his Terra Steel Annihilate. So his Annihilate was basically DOA right then and there. And that's what ended up winning game 1. Game 2, I did end up proccing the weakness policy, and his Tyranitar just ran roughshod on me. But then game 3, I actually was able to play around and switch long enough to where I got reads right on his Annihilate, and I was able to basically guarantee that I won my first ever VGC set, which was absolutely insane. And I said it to all my opponents, I thanked them for good games, hoped I gave them good games, but really, Chance's team, for a first time, I thanked him so much. But that was his team. Let me pull up round 2. Now we're getting into round 2 with Ryan Almeida. And his team, also really good. And you're going to find out that he's got a very unique strategy that is actually what caused me to lose this game. But in all fairness, Ryan's really good. All my opponents were really freaking good, guys. I'm saying it straight up. He had Flutter Mane with Choice Specs. So like I said, it was either Choice Specs, Life Orb, or Focus Sash. So he picked this one, I picked that one. Moonblast, Shadow Ball, Dazzling Gleam, Mystical Fire. My Flutter Mane always wins against his unless he Terras, because his Shadow Ball never knocks out mine, and my Shadow Ball knocks out his. Simple enough as that. Next up was his Aqua Tauros. I think he was probably one of the only people who brought one of the Paldean Tauroses, to be fully honest. I'd have to look at the stats again for that. But this is where it gets unique. He ran Assault Vest with Terra Steel. But look at these 4 moves. Close Combat, Aqua Jet, Surf, Raging Bull. I'm going to get to it in a second, but you'll understand what he did. His next mod was King Gambit, Life Orb with Kowtow, Cleave, Sucker Punch, Iron Head, Protect. Standard King Gambit set in VGC with Defiant as its ability. Just in case you know there are any stat drops to be able to just clean house afterwards. But he couldn't use Sucker Punch on me because I had Farigiraf. He also had Roaring Moon. But his was, like I said, standard was Terra Flying with Acrobatics after using the booster energy and just go to town on people. He had Throat Shot in case he battled any Sylveons, because Hyper Voice Pixelate is an instant nuke on just about anything. And then he had Tailwind and Protect. So we shared 2 of the same moves on our Roaring Moons. And if I remember correctly, his also boosted attack much like mine does. Next up was his Indeedee. Like I told you, this was going to be the Indeedee I was going to run. And I told Ryan after our game, straight up, if I didn't have that Farigiraf, I would have been using this Indeedee set. So it would have just been a mirror. With the Psychic Seed, Terra Fairy, D-Gleam, Follow Me, Helping Hand, Protect with Psychic Surge. And then his Armor Rouge, Terra Psychic, Weakness Policy, Expanding Force, Armor Cannon, Trick Room, and Protect. He beat me in game 1 because, if I remember correctly, I lowered King Gambit stat, and then he just went to town with like Kowtow, Cleave, and Iron Head on me. But in game 2, he led Tauros and Armor Rouge, and then he surfed on Armor Rouge, thus activating the weakness policy, and I was nuked every other turn. Because as soon as he did that, he swapped out Indeedee to activate the Psychic Surge, and then he was just clicking Expanding Force, because I didn't bring Roaring Moon in game 2. And it was... Actually, no. That's a lie. I did bring Roaring Moon in game 2. It's just Armor Cannon with Helping Hand boost after Weakness Policy is a nuke and a half. But that was against Ryan. Round 2. As you guys see, lost. Game 3 was against Mike Almendares, and his team was also very nice. And also unique, too. As you can tell with his Kilowattrel, it ran Focus Sash, a standard on Kilowattrel, but he didn't run Wind Power with Tailwind. He ran Volt Absorb with Tailwind. And he told me it was kind of because his Titan was Terra Water, so, to try to wrap around any electric type moves that go into his Titan, which is kind of smart to have a way to work around that. But he had Hurricane and Thunderbolt to go along with Protect. And I I asked him about the 70% accuracy, but, I mean, hey, 120 base power, I can respect it. As for Titan, this thing was a menace. Straight up, it was an absolute menace. Protect, Liquidation, Belly Drum, and Ice Shard, and I actually let him set up the Belly Drum in the first 2 games. Because I looked briefly at his team sheet, and I didn't even notice that move. But when I saw it happen in the game, I'm like, oh boy, thank God for training, because we practiced against Belly Drums, mostly Iron Hands, but not Titan, but neither here nor there. He also had weakness policy Armor Rouge, but he ran Psychic like I did, Armored Cannon, Ally Switch, and Destiny Bond. And I'm going to talk about this set because this is what happened at the end of it. I'm going to explain it in a second. He also had Glamora. He led Glamora the first 2 games. And what I noticed about his Glamora, again, the Toxic Debris. That's what I keyed in on, because Toxic Debris, physical attack. I have a lot of physical attackers on my team, so I had to be extra vigilant against his Glamora, because if I hit it with a physical attack, I set up Toxic Spikes on my side of the field, and every one of my Pokemon is automatically on a timer. Even Brute Bonnet, who, if I tear it into poison, would still be poisoned, despite being a poison type. And that's if I Terra type. Other than that, Power Gem and Sludge Wave, you know, the standard, stab moves on Glamora, and then Reflecting Light Screen just for extra damage. Not extra damage, support. Next up was Meowscarada, Play Rough, Flower Trick, Trick Room, and Knockoff. I believe the way that he had Trick Room on this Meowscarada is he was the fastest on the team, because I set up a Trick Room in game 1, and his was still the fastest Mon in Trick Room. So that made me think that, okay, he put Trick Room on Meowscarada simply to counter any Trick Rooms on his opponent's side. And in all fairness, that was very smart of him. And then, like I said, Play Rough, Flower Trick, and Knockout, but he couldn't. Life Orb makes it a little bit of a challenge for Goldango to survive if I hit with Life Orb, but unfortunately, I never had to worry about that. And then finally was his Slitherwing, Booster Energy to boost his attack stat with Close Combat, Flame Charge, Leech Life, and Protect. I mean, the base 81 speed was okay, but that was the main thing that he was worried about. The Booster Energy to just basically make any one of his attacks a nuke, with that base 135 attack. Now, in this game, this was something that shocked me. When we battled in Game 3, because again, it was a win and a loss, so it forced Game 3, and we both agreed that if you get a 3-game set, doesn't really matter who wins or who loses. But he led Armor Rouge and Meowscarada, and I led Goldango and Fluttermane. And I was like, okay, I see that he has Ally Switch on this Armor Rouge. Is he going to click it now? Or is he going to click it later when I'm not expecting it? So I took a very calculated risk, and I clicked Moonblast on Armor Rouge, because it was Armor Rouge on this side, Meowscarada on this side, versus Fluttermane and Goldango. And I decided to click Moonblast into the Armor Rouge spot and Shadow Ball into the Meowscarada spot. It was a calculated risk, but he ended up going for the Ally Switch, and I got a one-shot on both of his mons. So I was already up 4-2 at that time. And then he sends out Titan and Kilowattrel in the back. When he does that, the game disconnects. And it wasn't just our game, it was our entire row. Every game disconnected. So what happened was, because of the rule that TPCI and the regional tournaments have in effect, despite me being up 4-2, the battle was scored a tie. And because it was a tie in a 1-1 set, we had to go what's called sudden death, which is basically first one to get a kill wins. Straight up. Whoever gets a kill first wins the game. And we led I led Roaring Moon and Fluttermane, and he led Slitherwing and Kilowattrel in the sudden death game. And we all clicked Protect, turn 1. So we could all, you know, just like scout out each other's moves. He actually asked the judge, are we allowed to switch in sudden death? And the judge was like, why wouldn't you be allowed to switch in sudden death? It's mainly just a battle. It's whoever gets a kill first wins. So when he said, you're allowed to switch, I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, he's gonna switch Slitherwing out because he knows I'm gonna click Moonblast into the Slitherwing slot and I'm gonna OHKO it instantly. So I ended up clicking Crunch and I ended up clicking Moonblast into the Slitherwing slot. And he switched in Armarouge and I one-shot with Crunch. So I ended up winning the sudden death. So I ended up going 2-1 into the break, which, again, was pretty good for a first-time regional, going 2-1 in your first 3 games. After the break, going to round 4. And in all fairness, this was the one that I was dreading. I was dreading having to face the Dondozo Tatsugiri set. And John, he brought the Dozo Tatsugiri, but you want to know the funny thing? He never even brought Dondozo. He never even activated Commander on his team. He brought just Tatsugiri to be fast. He never even brought Dondozo in the 2 games, but it's just that matter of having it means you gotta respect the possibility that it can come. And, I mean, his Brute Bonnet was pretty good as well, although I don't think he... Wait, no, I don't think he brought it. No, he didn't bring Brute Bonnet. He just brought Flutter, Tatsugiri, Iron Moth, and Iron Hands. I remember he used Acid Spray on my Armarouge because I Terra Grassed on the first game, and then he knocked me out with Shadow. Oh wait, no, that's false. He tried to do it, Acid Spray into Shadow Ball, thinking that I would stay Fire Psychic and then be knocked out with Shadow Ball, but because I was Terra Grass, Acid Spray was super effective, but Shadow Ball wasn't, and then I was, what's it called, I lived. I lived the hit and I was able to set up Trick Room on his team, but the fact that he had Grass Iron Moth meant that I couldn't Spore his Iron Moth. Same goes for his Iron Hands, and in all fairness, this has been the standard set. Terra Grass, Assault Vest, Iron Hands. With Fake Out, Wild Charge, I've seen Drain Punch, I've seen Fire Punch, I've seen Swords Dance, and all of my friends, they were running Belly Drum sets, and it was working phenomenally for them. And Volt Switch just for a little extra pivot. I mean, base 50, it's not going to be doing much damage, but to be able to get out in the event of like a Perish Trap set is very vital. So, I ended up losing 2-0 in this game, but it was because I did respect the Dondozo. I really did. But just because I respected it too much, I kind of was playing a little, I'll say loose, but at the same time I was trying to make game plans in my head that just weren't effective for a team like John. So I ended up losing that set 0-2. Round 5, played against Tristan Juhas. And he also had Dondozo Tatsugiri, but his was the, I think it's the curly form that he had. Because his was getting the attack boosts, if I'm not mistaken, when he was using Order Up. But his was also a really scary Dondozo. And to do it back-to-back, getting a Dozo Tatsugiri matchup, meant that I was really on the back burner. And he also had Terra Grass in Iron Moth. He also had Terra Grass Assault Vest in Iron Hands. But his Iron Moth had Booster Energy, because he wanted to get a little extra power with his Iron Moth. And in all fairness, I mean, he did get some extra power, but his Iron Moth still couldn't knock out anything. It really couldn't knock out anything. Which, in all fairness, is kind of sad. But in this game, I remember that I lost because I did actually activate the the booster energy. I let him go on me. Iron Hands, I think it came against me in Terra Grass once, but I don't remember. But the Dondozo, I do remember this. This was the game that kind of was a little bit of a bum for me because I ended up knocking out the Dozo. It's the only Dondozo that I knocked out. And I had my Roaring Moon Terrafire, so, you know, I mean, Tatsugiri still would have hit me super effective, but I just didn't want to get hit with a Draco Meteor. And I clicked Dragon Claw knowing that I would knock out Tatsugiri. He got a critical hit with Muddy Water. O-code my Roaring Moon. That was it. I didn't stand a chance. So, ended up going 2 and 3 at the halfway point. And at this point, I was hearing, you know, after 4 losses, you'd be eliminated from championship points. But I said I was going to max out my experience. And honestly, I was still going for it. Next up was against Vincent Priolo, the Elective Iron Man. And his team was really fun. He had Terra Fairy, Fluttermane, Wise Glasses, which was kind of unique, with Shadow Ball, Moonblast, Mystical Fire, and Icy Wind. Mystical Fire, naturally, I mean, he's got a Torkoal next to him with Eruption and Charcoal and Terra Fire, so he was going to be nuking a lot of things if he was at full health. And then Fluttermane was there, I'm guessing, for speed control at the same time. He also had Solar Beam and Earth Power for any water types or any fire types that were against him, which is smart. But he had a really fun combination with those two. He also had Amoonguss, Rocky Helmet. First Rocky Helmet Amoonguss I saw with the standard set. Clear Smog, Pollen Puff, Rage Powder, and Spore. With Terra Water. This was the one that I was really looking forward to, was his Great Tusk. First Great Tusk I battled the entire day. Headlong Rush, Close Combat, Knockoff, and Protect. With his Terra Ground, I mean, if I'm correct, I think he did Terra this one of our games. And he did do some damage, but because of, you know, Great Tusk's base 53, I still was able to knock him out in usually like 1 or 2 hits of a special attack, which was good for us, kind of bad for him. He also had Roaring Moon. Like I said, Terra Flying was a standard set with Booster Energy, but he had Torkoal, so Booster Energy was never needed to be activated right off rip. And then when his Torkoal would go out or the sun would dissipate, then Booster Energy would be consumed and Acrobatics would be his play. He had Dragon Claw and Earthquake. Earthquake was there for, you know, some spread damage, but he also had Rotom Wash and he had some protection on his team. So that way he could attack and, you know, not damage his teammate. But his Rotom Wash was very nice with a Specs, said Volt Switch, Thunderbolt, Shadow Ball, and Hydro Pump. Very good. I liked it a lot. But we ended up winning this one to go back up to 500 at 3 and 3, which was honestly really good. Round 7, we played against James Horn, and when I saw his team, he had the 2 strategies that I struggled against immensely on the ladder. Tatsugiri Dondozo. So, spoiler alert, I went 0 and 3 against Tatsugiri Dondozo. But he also had Lycanroc and Sandrush with the Focus Sash, and Tyranitar with Sandstream, both of them having Rock Slide, but his Tyranitar being Terra Flying with Terra Blast and Assurance. So the play was Lycanroc uses Rock Slide, gets a chip, Tyranitar, Assurance is something, and it's knocked out. But that was scary in its own right. And then he also had Taunt on his Lycanroc. I don't remember what he said that was for, but Close Combat and Rock Slide, you know, were scary enough as it was. His Dondozo, really scary, like every other scary Dondozo. And then Choice Scarf Tatsugiri with Fluttermane and Iron Moth in the back. Toxic Spikes, I did mention it to him that I ran a random set from the VGC Pace Discord server that had Toxic Spikes on their Iron Moth. And I got a comment from one of the players that literally said, "Ew, gross, stick to singles." And I still ended up beating him with that Iron Moth with Toxic Spikes, no less. So there's that. But we both had a laugh about that. And again, you know, taking losses, I'm fine with that. But we go down to 3 and 4 after this. About then, it's round 8, it's getting late, and, you know, people are starting to drop. But then I battled Brandon Thelwell Romney, and his team was really fun. Booster Energy, Roaring Moon, Throat Chop, Acrobatics, Protect and Tailwind, Terra Flying, makes perfect sense. Focus Sash, Fluttermane, Dazzling Gleam, Mystical Fire, Shadow Ball, and Protect. So we kind of shared the same mindset of our Fluttermanes. It was basically who's going to set up their Fluttermane to be KO'd on the very next turn. His Gastrodon, however, is what really threw me off. Now, this is a shout out to my friend the PokeRap. You gotta love it, man. The power of slugs. There were a decent amount of slugs in Orlando, and all of them were this set with Terra Fire, Storm Drain, Earth Power, Recover, Muddy Water, and Protect. I don't get what the Covert Cloak was for. I really don't get that on Gastrodon. But somebody will probably mention it to me on what it's for in the comment section below on Gastrodon, specifically. His Arcanine, Terra Normal, Safety Goggles, so he can't be put to sleep with Intimidate, Flare Blitz, Snarl, Will-O-Wisp, and Extreme Speed. Extreme Speed there for priority, Will-O-Wisp there to cripple any physical attackers, Snarl for special attackers, and Flare Blitz is just Flare Blitz, but his Snarl would never affect my Armarouge because of the Covert Cloak. And the standard Iron Hand set, Terra-type Grass, Assault Vest, Volt Switch, Fake Out, Stomping Tantrum, and Drain Punch. If I remember correctly, he said Stomping Tantrum was simply there in the event of, like, he wanted to, or, I mean, it just did massive amounts of damage from a base 140 attack. And then Amoonguss, Rocky Helmet, Regenerator, Spore, Protect, Rage Powder, and Pollen Puff. Now, with this set, I remember battling him, and I lost the first game, and I ended up doing a risk in game 2, and I ended up terastallizing my Farigiraf into Terra Fairy. That ended up winning us games 2 and games 3 to help us win this set to go back to 4 and 4. Which, you know, really good. Going back to 500 with 2 rounds left in the tournament. Round 9 was against Nick Willems, and his set, really good team. Baxcalibur, Flare Blitz, Will-O-Wisp, Snarl, Extreme Speed. We really just battled that same Arcanine in the previous round, just with Safety Goggles instead of the Aguav Berry, which was nice. Baxcalibur, Terra Ground, Icicle Spear, Stomping Tantrum, Ice Shard, Protect. Loaded dice, so he gets some good rolls and can, you know, knock out my Pokemon. He did Terra Ground this once. I remember he Terra Grounded his Baxcalibur, and it was pretty fun to see it happen. And I think I knocked it out once. But, I mean, I ended up losing the set 2-0, but I think I knocked it out once. First Sylveon that we battled all day with the Throat Spray and Pixelate. Hyper Voice, Terra Blast, Quick Attack, Protect, Terra Water. Any fire types that come out there, he can Terra Water, Terra Blast. And if he's not Water type, then Terra Blast is a Fairy type move. And after the Throat Spray, it's +1. So it does the most amount of damage. His Grimmsnarl, however, was probably one of the most unique Grimmsnarls I've ever seen. I'm outside of the standard Light Clay and Screens and Spirit Break. He had Misty Terrain on his Grimmsnarl, so that way he could really ensure that no status moves would be affected on the field. And I thought that was really cool. And it's also exactly why I didn't bring Brute Bonnet for any of these games. Then he also had King Gambit. He ran Assault Vest King Gambit. First time I saw AV on King Gambit. With Kowtow Cleave, Sucker Punch, Iron Head, and Zen Headbutt. You can see he was Terra Psychic. And I mean, this thing still hit like a tank when I battled it. And his Iron Hands was Citrus Berry with Fake Out, Drain Punch, Wild Charge, and Swords Dance. Very good set. And honestly, he ended up 2-0ing me. So he put us at 4 and 5 entering the final round, which meant we had to play one more game with a shot at 500. We ended up battling Alexander Che, and his team was all past Paradox Pokemon with Torkoal, so this was a lot of fun. Now, and especially his Flutterman. Specs, Photosynthesis, in the sun. Nothing is gonna be living a hit from this usually. Except our own Flutterman, because he attacked us, and we knocked it out in one shot. His Torkoal, Eruption, very, very, very powerful. Very powerful in the sun with Charcoal. First Screamtail that we battled, I was racking myself in my head. I could not figure out the past Pokemon that I was forgetting, and it was Screamtail. And his was the screen set with Trick Room and Psychic Fangs, which is kind of unique. But really, honestly, not much of a challenge. This was the real challenge. Terra Ground, Slitherwing, Choice Band in the sun. Much like Fluttermane, this thing was a nuke if it hit its move. And he did try Earthquake once, and when I saw that, I was like, okay, I'm attacking this spot every day of the week. I don't care what move I click, I'm doubling into it, and I'm knocking it out. And I ended up one-shotting it, with 2 attacks because I needed to get rid of it. I didn't care that he had Torkoal next to it and just clicked Eruption on the very next turn. I took my lumps where I could get it. Roaring Moon, Terra Flying, Booster Energy. I've beaten this one to the bush, but he brought Brute Bonnet, the exact same Terra type that we ran, swapped out Crunch for Sucker Punch, and swapped out Bullet Seed for Seed Bomb, and swapped out Leftovers for Rocky Helmet. Ended up winning this set 2-0, and we ended up going 5-5 for the whole tournament, guys. And in all fairness, I'm gonna pull up the RK9 site, and I'm gonna go to Events, Tournaments, Player Dashboard, History. You guys can see it right here. 343rd. That is where we ended up in the tournament. We finished 343 of 780 participants in the tournament, which for a first-time regional competitor, absolutely insane. I was stunned that I finished as high as I did. And with the resistances and whatnot, I think the top 5-5 guy was like somewhere in the 290s range, I think is where I saw it. So essentially tied for 290, officially 343, which again, really good. And above all those guys, and I'm putting it right now, the 2 best things was meeting the SPC guys, which you'll see the picture of us after the tournament. And honestly, I didn't think I was going to be able to meet him or talk to him or anything like that. But we ended up freaking meeting Wolf. And he took a photo with us. He was doing only fist bumps, which I can completely respect in the tournament hall. But when I told him this was my first regional, like, just the way that he reacted, like, he was like, "This is your first regional?" I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Well, welcome." Like, he was very welcoming. He was happy to hear that there was new people in the tournament. And I was blessed to hear that from him. And after the tournament was all over, I got a chance to, speak with him again. And I just, said, "Thank you for being so welcoming." Because, again, I didn't think a person of his stature would be so welcoming and so, approachable and friendly. Now, I'm not saying that, I'm trying to be like one of those weirdos on the internet. I'm saying this out of a place of full-on respect. Him being so forthcoming and welcoming and happy to hear that there were so many new players, that is something that the community really enjoys. So, Wolf, thank you very much for the conversations, and congratulations on winning the tournament again. Good for you. You had a great team. Sadly, I didn't battle it, but there's a good chance I'm going to be battling it on the in-game ladder sometime soon. But that's going to be our recap of the Orlando Pokemon Regionals, ladies and gentlemen. If you like this kind of content, leave a like on this video, comment down below what you thought of our performance, and subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. I'm going to get out of your hair for tonight, guys. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys next time.